Hello and welcome to part 4 of MCD Level 2 practice test question and explanation. Before we proceed, do subscribe if you haven't already done so. The question that we are going to discuss today says that the mule object store is configured with this particular setting, and this questions also gives the flow or rather the configuration XML for the flow. And let's first go to the flow what it does, and then we'll again go back to the question. So flow has few activities. First is the set payload, where it's set the payload value to original payload. Then it has this store activity, and what this does, it stores the key value pair with key as test key and value as test payload into the object store named OS. And then we have a retrieve activity where we are going to pass the key as test key, and in case if there is no object in the object store, then the default value will be null payload. So essentially we are trying to retrieve the same value which we have stored previously with this store activity. So from flow perspective, it contains only three activities: setting of payload, then storing the data in the object store, and retrieving. So now let's go back to the question. So the question says that the object store has an entry detail of 1 second and expiration interval of 30 seconds. And the question says that if the processing between object store activity and retrieve activity takes 12 seconds, then what is the result of the flow? So now what it means is that between the store and retrieve, there are different activities that are happening, and time that it will take is gonna 12 seconds. And assuming these activities in between these two, what would be the result of this particular flow? So there are two key things that we need to understand here, which is about the object store configuration. So whenever we create any object store, we specify the entry TTL, which is nothing but the time to live configuration. And what it says is that whenever we store any key value pair in the object store, it specifies the time for which that entry is gonna live in the object store. So which means that whenever we add any entry in object store, it is gonna live only for 1 second. But the catch that is mentioned next is the expiration interval. So what is this expiration interval? So it is nothing but the frequency after which mule thread runs and it checks object store for the entries which has surpassed its time to live value. So in which case it will, if after every 30 seconds, this thread will check in the object store for all the entries, and if check, it will check if those entries have surpassed this TTL value of 1 second, and whichever entries have surpassed this value, it will remove those key value pairs from object store. And which essentially means that though entry detail is 1 second, but the value will get removed only after 30 seconds when this expiration interval is over and mule thread scans the object store. So before we go to the options and explore the options, just a quick heads up. If you are preparing for any mule certification exam, then do check out this amazing mule practice tests which are available on Udemy. It covers all the mule exams and it provides you the different set of questions and their detailed explanations. And many students have found this exam practice sets quite useful in clearing their certification exam in the first attempt. So there are Udemy discount coupon links which are available in the description. Do make full use of it. Now coming back to the question, so let's go to the options. So first option is the test key. So now one thing is clear, that if when we execute this retrieve activity with passing the value as test key, so there are only two possibilities, right? Either the value exists in object store or it doesn't exist. In case it doesn't exist, then this default value null payload would be returned. And if it exists, then it will return the value as test payload. So in any of the case, we are never going to get this test key as a result of this retrieve activity, which means we can straight away discard this option. Now, second is the null payload. So null payload would be the response when the entry is removed from object store. So which means when it tries to find the entry with the key test key, it doesn't find any value. But as the default value is set as null payload, this will get returned. So this is one of the candidate for the answer. Next is the test payload, and which means that if entry is still there in object store, and in that case this test payload is returned. This is again one of the possible answer. And finally, the key not found. So again, this key not found we are never going to receive, because we are setting the default value as null payload. So which means either we can receive null payload or we can receive test payload. But again, as we discussed, that though the entry detail is 1 second, but the expiration interval is of 30 seconds, and which is quite more than the processing between OS store and OS retrieve, which is about the 12 seconds. So which means that after we store, there is something which is happening in 12 seconds, and after 12 seconds, when this retrieve activity will get executed, this key value pair will still exist in object store, as it is quite less than 30 seconds, and we should be able to get the value as the test payload. I've also created this flow in AnyPoint Studio. Let's go and quickly check and execute and check how it behaves. So I have used scheduler just to start the execution. Then I have a logger activity which is going to log that flow has started. Then this is the store activity, which is gonna store the value as the test payload. And if you look at the object store, then I've done the same settings which were there in the question. The entry detail is of 1 second and expiration interval of 30 seconds. And the next thing is the logger. So here I'm just logging that wait for 12 seconds. So now, to replicate that wait time of 12 seconds, I have made use of transform message, and here I have added this wait function, and so that this transform activity will hold thread for 12 seconds, and after that retrieve will happen, and retrieve has the default value of null payload. And finally, there is a logger activity which will just log the retrieve value, so that we would be able to verify that what is the payload which gets retrieved, or rather what is the result of the execution as it was mentioned in the question. So what we'll do is we'll quickly run this mill project, and we'll monitor the logs, and we will confirm our understanding that the value which is returned is test payload. So just wait for few seconds to get it started. So let's just wait for a couple of few seconds to get it started. Okay, so now in scheduler I have activity, I have used this delay of 10 seconds. So that is the reason we are not yet able to see the logs. Okay. So we got this flow started log, and we also got this wait for 12 seconds log at 11:50:27, and after 12 seconds we got this final log response saying that the retrieve value is test payload. So this definitely confirms our understanding that value, the correct answer is test payload. Hence the correct answer is C, test payload. I hope you find this question is explanation useful. If it is the case, then do press the like button, and you can share it with your friends. And I wish you happy learning, and I'll see you in the next part.